Continuamos. A ver, este juego está conectado a internet. Puedes dejar notas mientras vayas andando. Todas las notas que ves las han dejado otros jugadores. Oh. Oh. Uy, bonita habitación, pues, ¿no?
So first off, I'm sure you can deduce this, but this game is not connected to the internet. All of the notes that you're gonna see have been written by Coda. This was actually the first game of his that I ever played. This was shortly after I met him at a weekend game jam in Sacramento, where I grew up. I saw him working on this very level, and it was just so different from anything that anyone else was doing. So right away I was like, I have to be friends with this person. In retrospect, I think I was probably a bit too pushy, trying to get his attention. I was over-enthusiastic. But he was very gracious about it and very patient with me. And I cooled off eventually. Oh, feel free to skip over any of these notes if they're not doing anything for you. Nothing extra is gonna happen if you read all of them. Either way, to me they convey a sense of loneliness. I see this person who's filled with thoughts and feelings and beliefs and has no way to express them except as scattered and unheard voices in a game that wasn't meant to be played. But it's ironic, isn't it, that in playing this game and seeing how alone Coda often felt, that we get to know him better and actually kind of connect with him. And I have to be honest with you, this idea is really seductive to me, that I could just play someone's game and see the voices in their head and get to know them better and have to do less of the messy in-person socializing. I could just get to know you through your work. I think this is why I always liked Coda's games so much, is because it felt like they let me have that connection. I felt as though he was inviting me personally into his world. And then I feel less lonely too.
Subo a la gente porque me siento bien por dentro. Nueva sala. Que las campanas hacen que te muevas, ¿verdad? ¿Qué campanas? Y no hay mucha gente. Puedes entrar aquí, creo. Wow, espera. Aquí es donde me largo. No he podido escribir nada aquí. Para, date la vuelta. Si continúas, solo consideras mi ser. El pollo da forma a nuestra nación. No hables así. Creo que no conduce a ninguna parte. ¿No hay alguien con quien hablar? ¿Es una nota? No hagas caso a las demás notas. Estoy seguro. Cuadro, ¿qué significa? ¿Que ha hecho esto tenía algún problema? ¿Quién sois todos vosotros? Esto trata de que este juego es pretencioso y vosotros dais asco. Wow. Bueno, aquí estoy. Oh. Sí, todos estamos aquí. Debe haber alguna razón. Está bien. Veamos por acá. ¿Cuál es más?
At the end of this level, we're going to see the puzzle again. And here, I'll tell you what I think the puzzle means. Each of these games represents an idea that was on Coda's mind at the time that he was making it. And the puzzle is a way of closing the door on a previous chapter of his life before moving on to the next one. In each of his games, after exploring a theme that, he might find difficult, Coda can then place this puzzle that he knows has a reliable solution, he understands exactly how it works, and so it gives him a simple mechanism for moving on. And because there's this dark area between the doors, a space between spaces, before you move on, you get to pause. just for a moment, a few seconds to reflect on and let go of the events that led you here, to step back and connect the pieces together, to grasp at that elusive bigger picture.
Estás ahí, di algo. Puede ser cualquier cosa, solo tienes que decir algo. Habla conmigo, por favor. ¿Por qué estás costando tanto hablar? Habla. Mayo, junio del 2006. Las estrellas del porno
Okay,
también
this one's
mueren.
tough. It's gonna kind of just spin its own wheels for a few minutes. Hang with it.
Buena música.
See, like, this is it. The whole game. And there's nothing that's particularly interesting about it. You just walk to the end of a hallway. Except, for some reason, Coda gets really fixated on this prison that has all of this modern furniture. And I don't know why, but he decides he needs to revisit this prison. He's gonna start over, use the same assets, turn it into something else. Okay, cool. Here's version 2.
Versión 2. ¿Qué mueble debía haber en el centro de la habitación? Una nevera. Ok. ¿Qué ponemos en la pared? Y ese estupo se enfila en la pared. Bueno, es la idea de que podemos hacer. Creo que debería poner un poco más de luz en la habitación. Estoy pensando en un 10x12 lámpara de LED. Ah. ¿Y una mesa? ¿Necesitas una mesa? ¿Quién eres? ¿Desde dónde estás haciendo esto exactamente? Ok.
There's a bit more to this one, but still it's not really communicating anything. It's kind of just weird for weirdness' sake. So okay, he throws it out and starts over. This time he comes at the prison idea from a different direction.
Sigue instrucciones detenidamente. Primero, haz clic en esta mesa. Bien, ahora ve hacia el marco y los 3 puntos de vuelta. Hacia la derecha, levemente. Ahora apaga la lámpara de esta habitación y luego vuelve a encenderla. ¿No? Vuelve a encenderla. Ahora ve al sofá que está a la izquierda, muévelo un poco. Eso. Por último, toca las estanterías. Eso es una prisión real. El lugar de huida estará ahora abierto. Regresa al principio para regresar a tu prisión. Regresa al principio para regresar a tu prisión. Volver.
And of course, now the table is gone and you can't begin the chain of events to escape. Here's a version where there are no bars, but you can't actually get to the well. And then a version where the inside of the prison is the outside and the outside is the inside. Let me just blink you real quick through a few more of these. I mean, he really unloaded on this prison idea. There's nearly a dozen of them. Personally, I think it's awful to watch this, to see a person basically unraveling through their work. And for what? Like, at what point do you just go, maybe there are game ideas other than this prison that I could be working on? But Coda doesn't have that voice telling you to stop, that particular mechanism of defense against yourself. Without it, you just spiral. And so he keeps going and going and going and going and going, and then he hits on something. And he likes it. And that's it. He's done. He stops making prisons. This is the very last version of the prison game that he created. And the reason I think it works is that the prison is not actually in it.
Ok. Hola. ¿Quién es? Soy yo. Como soy tú después de haber escapado de la prisión. ¿Eres yo? ¿Tú también estás atrapado en esta prisión? Sí, estaba en el laberinto de los muebles.
It's a conversation. And so this is what Coda wants, is to be able to talk to someone, to share what's on his mind, and to get some good advice from someone who knows. But the irony is that even in this scenario, you're still talking to yourself. You know, all of these games so far are Coda talking to himself.
¿En serio? ¿Cuánto hace que ha salido? Es unos pocos minutos, pero ya es algo confuso, como si nunca hubiese ocurrido. Pero es la cosa más horrible. ¿Cómo se te ha podido olvidar? Te prometo que ahora no es tan malo como te crees. Un momento, si tú eres yo y recibiste una llamada de otra versión de ti cuando escapabas, no, creo que soy la primera persona a la que llamo. Entonces, ¿puedes decirme cómo escapaste? Tal vez pueda ir a encontrarte. ¿Qué tengo que hacer? Para salir, todo lo que tienes que hacer es ser sincera. ¿Qué? ¿Y eso me librará? ¿Es cómo funciona? Todo lo sé, sincera. ¿Sincera sobre qué? Esto es exactamente lo que tienes que averiguar para escapar.
I can see why he considers this a fitting conclusion to the prison games. After all of the obsession and frustration, just to be told by someone you can trust that things are going to be okay. Wouldn't that be nice?
Agosto del 2009.
So what would it look like if Coda wanted to make a game about talking to someone other than himself? To me, this environment is meant to represent Coda's puzzle, with the two doors on either side and a dark transitional space between.
Ya, Dios mío, quiero un montón de que haya tenido. Pensé que iba a tener que limpiar toda la casa yo sola, y eso no me hubiese gustado nada. Todo el mundo sabe que unas manos solitarias dejan una casa sucia.
You'll notice that the quality of the art is a step up from previous games, including this new and improved chat system, which he started using from this point on. From here on out, he begins putting much more effort into the visual polish of his work, and this particular game took 2 months to create as a result.
Y las casas sucias crean unos inquilinos solitarios. Algo me dice que va a ser divertido trabajar contigo. Bueno, este sitio no se va a limpiar solo, eso seguro. Yo acabaré aquí. Mientras tanto, ¿puedes limpiar la mesa? Eso es mucho mejor. Así es como quiero ver la mesa. ¿Te importaría ir a la habitación ahora y hacer la cama? estás ahí, ¿por qué no estiras un poco la alfombra? Cualquier pequeño detalle importa. ¿Te gusta limpiar? Bueno, más que gustarme, en realidad lo necesito. Mientras estoy trabajando siento como una especie de calma en mi interior. Parece que mi alma no puede ser calmada de otra manera. Supongo que eso es todo lo que importa. Y a eso y un sofá bien colocado. ¿Te importaría poner bien los cojines del sofá? Oh. Vaya, parece que a alguien se le ha caído una bebida al lado del sofá. ¿Por qué no pasas la fregona ya que estás... Ahí está. Ya que estás ahí. Me siento en la obligación de compartir un pensamiento un poco cursi. ¿Te parece bien? Que sea especialmente cursi. No, era una tontería, perdona. Da igual. Oye, hay que lavar los platos, ¿te importa? La última vez que me fijé en la bañera había que limpiarla. ¿Por qué no refriegas la mejor que puedes? No hace falta que sea perfecto, todos somos humanos. ¿Te importaría ponerlos? Ah, todavía hay libros tirados en el suelo de la habitación. ¿Te importaría ponerlos otra vez en la estantería? Ahora, ¿por qué no quitas esos platos sucios de la mesa?
After the intense set of prison games, this house cleaning level almost feels like cleansing. It's the moment after a particularly difficult or traumatic experience where you just need to let it sit and digest inside of you, and eventually cohere into something meaningful.
Una vez se acaba todas las tareas, te diré una cosa, cariño. Hagas lo que hagas, tienes que dominarlo completamente. De lo contrario, te domina a ti. Así que, ¿por qué no te pones con la tarea que tienes entre manos y dejas la tarea?
Really liked this game. Of all of his work, actually, this was the only one that he called me up to ask me to come over and look at it. This was during a period of a few months where he was like grossly happy all the time. Just walked around with a constant smile on his face.
Vamos a estirar la alfombra de la habitación. ¡Ay, ay, ay! Hazme caso. Parece que la bañera está sucia. Me importaría limpiar. Antes, cuando te dije que había tenido un pensamiento muy cursi, iba a decir que para mí la casa de una persona es como su alma. Te ocupas de ella y ella se ocupa de ti, ¿eh? No sé por qué me siento así por decir eso. Lo entiendo. Pero tiene una parte de verdad, ¿no? En fin. Bien. Limpiar. Sigamos con eso. Libros. ¿Te importa colocar los libros? Gracias. Madre mía, esos cojines encima del sofá están hechos un desastre.
I'm glad he found some peace.
Pregunta.
But,
¿Te gusta
of
hacer
course,
esto?
it can't last.
The
music stops, your companion is gone, it's time to leave. The door at the top of the hill is now open as well. Again, you can't stay in the dark space for too long. You just can't. You have to keep moving. It's how you stay alive.
Claro, los lugares intermedios. Controlo. ¿Hace algo?
Which is the whole point of the puzzle doors, right? That sooner or later you have to pick up and move. I really thought that was the point of it.
Septiembre del 2009. Los objetos que te
This
encantan.
one gets a bit goofy.
¿Por qué habéis venido hoy aquí? ¿Es para mejorar vuestras vidas? ¿Es para conseguir un mejor trabajo? ¿Es para hacer que vuestras relaciones sean más significantes? No, habéis venido aquí para ser perfectos. Este taller os va a enseñar a ser perfectos. Quiero que vuestros amigos, la gente en vuestra vida, os mire y diga: wow, esta persona es el mejor ser humano que yo he visto. Ahora mismo, ¿sobre quién pensáis así en vuestras vidas? ¿Quién conocéis que ha crecido tanto como persona que os hace sentiros asqueados con vosotros mismos? Comparado con esa persona, ¿os sentís inútiles, egoístas, ingratos? Quiero convertiros en esa persona. La perfección está a vuestro alcance. La cuestión no es cómo lo conseguimos, sino cómo lo conseguimos sin esfuerzo. Es fácil.
About halfway through the game, the perspective shifts.
¡Wow! Esta es la clave, como lo consigo sin esfuerzo. El
And
2
you
es...
play as the teacher. And suddenly, you discover that your teacher is just as bigoted and afraid as you are. Oh, and also you can move around the classroom now.
Los niños no deberían seguir sus sueños. Estar solo debe ser horrible. Gracias a Dios que todos me ven como alguien sabio e inteligente. No entiendo que no serás feliz hasta que me quieras. Eso es para ti. Estaba de broma. ¿Y si no soy buen maestro? Viene a por mí. Te va a destruir.
I felt pretty hard for this one.
Perfección.
I feel like it's one of the most relatable experiences that you can have. To assume that some other person is perfect and totally fulfilled in every way, and completely miss all of the little flaws that make them painfully human. I think about this game a lot these days.
Enero del 2010.
This one took a lot longer than all the others for Coda to make. It was 4 months between this and the last one. That's twice as long as it took him to make any other game before this, and it's not like it's particularly complex, so I remember I found that a little strange at the time. To withdraw, to hide himself away, which is what leads to scenarios like the stairs that slowed you down several games ago, where it just becomes harder and harder to access Coda's inner landscape because he keeps retreating. He just keeps backing away from possible connections to anyone other than himself. And to be honest, I didn't consider it very healthy when I first played this game. You know, it looked to me like he was trying to justify the idea of just disconnecting yourself from the world. And that wasn't what I wanted for him or for his games. Because I feel like a lot of his games are inviting me to connect with this person, to bring him closer. But what can you do? After this, Coda went off and took another 5 months to make a new game.
Junio del 2010. Viaje de Mobius. Para jugar este juego correctamente tienes que tener los ojos cerrados. Haz clic para empezar a jugar. Dale. A ver. La música se escucha como fuego. Hola. Voy para adelante. No escucho nada. Es la música, ¿no? Ok. Esto se está volviendo pelotudo. No puedo ver. Hola. Clic E, R. Algo. Ahí se escuchó que hay un chop. Bueno. ¿Otra vez?
You should probably open your eyes if you haven't already.
Whoa.
It's pretty much impossible to solve otherwise.
El SS
And there is
susurro.
a solution, by the way.
¡Wow! Ciego, ciego. Estoy ciego. Ayuda. No, no, sí veo yo. Yo sí. Médico. Ciego. ¡Wow! Ciego, ciego, ciego. ¡Cha! ¿Qué ocurre? No puedo morir de esta forma. No puedo morir de esta forma. Investigación. Ah. Arriba. Que alguien. La única forma de detenerlo es diciendo algo que sea honesto. No puedo seguir haciéndolos. Sí, es verdad. Ah, mierda, se me crispó la nuca.
Like I said, I was getting concerned. First off, he's never been this explicit in his work about exactly what he's thinking. So where's that coming from? But then even weirder, his work has potentially stopped being an outlet for him. Not like he's having trouble iterating on ideas, but he literally just can't think of new ideas anymore. And in person, he was being a lot more distant than usual. Like, you know how sometimes a person will just deflect anything that you say in order to keep themselves disconnected all the time? It was that kind of thing. Here was the point in my relationship with Coda where I really started to wonder if he needed my help in some way. His games are going to get more desperate from here on out. After this game, it's almost 6 months before he finishes something new.
¿Ya? ¿Cuándo salió esta isla? Oh. ¿Eso es una persona? Qué bien, hace mucho tiempo que no hablo con nadie. ¿Qué te ocurre? Parece que te has perdido. Me quedo completamente sin ideas. Intento crear, me siento vacía. Oh. Oh no. ¿Qué ha ocurrido? ¿Has cambiado algo? Estoy tratando de encontrar esta máquina que solía protegerme para arrancarla de nuevo. A la mierda. Espera, ¿estás buscando una máquina? Creo que sé dónde está. Mucho al mar. Está muy lejos. Tienes que llevarme hasta ella.
If the last game featured Coda talking explicitly about his creative frustrations, this one turns it up to 11. Now, put yourself in my shoes playing this. Here's a friend whose work is exhibiting signs of struggle, frustration, anxiety, depression, even. And yet, still, he keeps making games. He keeps throwing himself into the grinder even when he clearly doesn't have the energy for it anymore. Why? What is it for? Because from my perspective at the time and just what I knew of him, this was a result of how isolated he was. He was in his own little bubble, just sitting at his computer all day, not really showing these games to anyone, not releasing them onto the internet, and so he didn't have anyone outside of himself to connect with. He had no outlet to ground himself on.
Ahora tienes que cerrar la primera puerta. Bien, ¿y ahora qué hago? Pulsa este interruptor. Ah, qué fácil.
You can't talk yourself out of loneliness. It doesn't work that way. You can't be the one writing both the questions and the answers. Then there's no movement. Then there's no circulation. If all of your anxieties are being channeled into your work, then if the work ever fails, you have no backup and you're just going to crash.
Madre. No era verdad. No te preocupes, por eso tú sigue hablando. Ojo, me siento con mucha energía. Y es maravilloso. No pares.
Seeing this game at the time that he made it, it looked really unhealthy to me. I was watching him do this to himself, and I hated it. I hated seeing him so trapped. It's like, video games are not worth this amount of suffering. This is someone I really cared about. And I used to get so much joy out of seeing him create. For him to suddenly become angry and frustrated like this, it was the worst thing for me. I don't know. This is what I felt at the time. I don't know how else to explain it. I wanted it to stop more than anything. I had never felt so rotten. I needed more than I had ever needed anything for this to stop.
Luego se detenga. Que se pare. Ah, no voy atrás. No. Dios.
But it didn't stop. After finishing this one, Coda takes another 7 months and comes up with a new game.